in particular, is one of many U.S. headquartered corporations with a history of colluding with the Colombian state and right-wing paramilitaries to target union leaders and human rights offenders. Meanwhile, the U.S. government continues to give hundreds of millions in military aid to Colombia, funding this violence and human rights abuses and training them. This will be a unique opportunity to hear directly from leading unionists on the plight of tobacco workers, the crimes of multinational corporations like Philip Morris, and the need for international solidarity with Colombia. First, we'll watch this video report from the front lines of this struggle in Colombia.
La primera tabacalera del mundo anunció su retiro de Colombia. Los cultivadores que llevan al menos 2 siglos haciéndolo están en la incertidumbre. Aunque la culpa oficial se la echan a los impuestos y al contrabando, ellos saben que la nueva planta de México utilizará tabaco local para hacer cigarrillos electrónicos. Desde que la primera tabacalera del mundo anunció su retiro de Colombia, los cultivadores que llevan al menos 2 siglos haciéndolo están en la incertidumbre. Aunque la culpa oficial se la echan a los impuestos y al contrabando, ellos saben que la nueva planta de México utilizará tabaco local para hacer cigarrillos electrónicos.
Se va a esfumar esta historia, nos vamos a convertir en historia.
En 1781 los impuestos al tabaco desencadenaron la revolución comunera y en 2019 el mismo motivo, según Philip Morris, causó el final de su producción en Colombia.
En la ciudad de Medellín la planta está paralizada totalmente, Barranquilla está paralizada totalmente, los técnicos de campo en Colombia que visitan a los agricultores no están saliendo a campo.
Cerca de 900 trabajadores directos y 2.000 agricultores están en vilo. Noticias 1 estuvo en Santander, principal cultivador de la planta, donde la tradición de generación en generación les tiene grabada en la memoria el procedimiento diario.
Hacer semilleros, sembrarlo, esperar que crezca, coger, ensartarlo, mire, colgarlo en estas sartas que ve acá. Coger estas hojitas así de este porte.
Paulatinamente los cultivos han pasado 16.000 toneladas a 3.000 toneladas de tabaco al año.
La realidad es que el país no se preparó para competir.
Las mismas multinacionales con sus formas y sus políticas han venido reduciendo el cultivo y las áreas en Colombia.
El gobierno nacional no adoptó ninguna decisión ni tomó ninguna medida para proteger la producción y el mercado nacionales.
En una sola hectárea se siembran cerca de 20.000 matas. El kilo de tabaco se lo vendían a la multinacional a 6.500 pesos y aunque las ganancias mensuales son menos que un mínimo, les alcanzaba para subsistir.
Estamos desvelados porque no sabemos qué vamos a hacer, cuál será el futuro de los hijos.
La gobernación de Santander ya anunció un plan de sustitución, aunque no ha dicho qué cultivos.
Para que ellos puedan seguir subsistiendo de las actividades agropecuarias.
¿Cómo es posible que la federación, los gremios, el gobierno nacional, departamental, hable de sustituir, de terminar el cultivo de tabaco? ¿Acaso no sigue el consumo?
Pero los campesinos, quienes ya anunciaron movilizaciones, también tienen razones de costo-eficiencia.
Si siembra usted frijoles, en una hectárea le caben 4 arrobas de frijoles.
Las tierras no son completas para sembrar uno bastante para poder hacer lo que sea uno con tabaco.
Cabe precisar que este año la Agencia Federal de Drogas y Alimentos de Estados Unidos le autorizó a Philip Morris la producción y comercialización de cigarrillos electrónicos.
Let's go help people customize and save
as people that cultivate tobacco, it is fundamental that you pay attention to the presentation that we'll be providing here in New York. Just give a second. They're just having some tech difficulties. Just need to transmit the audio via internet.
So we just need like a minute or two, 5 minutes maybe. We're having a little bit of technological audio issues, and we want to make sure that everybody on YouTube who's watching can hear.
Viéndonos virtualmente nos puedan escuchar. Ahora sí está funcionando.
Okay. Is there anyone that's not hearing the translation through your headset?
Aquí que no está escuchando la interpretación a través de sus
No.
equipos de aparato. Disculpen, estamos tratando de identificar eso.
Buenas noches a todos. Realmente para nosotros como Sintra Tabaco es un placer poder compartir este espacio.
Tobacco, it is a pleasure to share space with you tonight.
Buenas noches a todos.
Good evening, everyone. It really is
es un
a
placer
pleasure
tenerlos a
to
ustedes
join
en
you
este foro
as Sintra
para dar
Tobacco.
a conocer la
It is a pleasure
problemática que actualmente vive nuestra
share with you
organización
the
en contra
issues
de las
that we are
políticas
facing against the
nefastas de la
politics.
multinacional. Muy probablemente no pudieron observar la
Probably.
traducción literal del video.
Unfortunately, they weren't able to make the translation of the video, but I will briefly let you know what have been the issues that have been going on for many years, and the tobacco growers have been facing here in Colombia. These images that we were showing were regarding the action in Santander, where the cultivation of tobacco Check 1 2, check 1 2. Can you hear me? Check 1 2.
I'm sorry, everyone. Just give us a few minutes. What?
Check 1 2, check 1 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check 1 2, check 1 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. Check 1 2, check 1 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Would it help if we get closer? It might also be because we have this mic over here. It might be having like interference. I don't know.
Check 1 2. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Check 1, 2. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll continue with the presentation that you can see appearing on the screen. We're going to go over what is the current situation with tobacco. And we're going to talk about Philip Morris and the framework agreement situation with farmers. Okay, Philip Morris International, turning the rights of tobacco workers and growers into smoke and ashes. What you observe here is you could see the plants of tobacco. As you can see in the screen, they no longer exist. That's why you see an X, because they do no longer exist, as you see on these images. Initially, this is the tobacco leaf, and this was the main source of economy in different areas of Colombia: Santander, Caro Bolívar, Sucre, and Cesar. Today, they do not exist currently. Also, as you can see in this other image, the tobacco growers don't have this as a way to sustain their families, and they do not have a stable job. Why? Because multinational corporations have deprived them. And today, the multinational no longer buys tobacco from these farm workers. It is a social issue that we're currently living in Colombia. And today, now, currently, there is no tobacco in Colombia. Historically, you can see the standards of the evolution of tobacco area under cultivation in the Americas. This graphic demonstrates of the increase that has increased up to $5 million, but then you see it descending, totally descending, and it impacts one way or another the current situation in Colombia. Why? Because this cultivation of tobacco no longer exists in Colombia. There is also a cigarette consumption share by region of the world. You can see this on the screen, the percentages. Latin America has the less consumption, and we see Pacific Asia with a higher percentage of consumption. But today, we see that the consumption drives Philip Morris to be one of the most multinational governing And we can also see here the biggest tobacco companies by market value on this image. And we can see the other companies that commercialize tobacco on the graph reflected. The presence
there are different places in South America where Philip Morris is present in South America and parts of Canada. As you can observe here, well, these are the closings and laid-offs and how tobacco purchase was not encouraged from 2005 to 2009, and also work harassment, which increased in occupational illnesses during that same time. You also see an important increase with reduced risks from IQOS, ULIS, and vaporizers. You also see historical closures. You can see on the graph COLTABACO, which closed Pasto, Cartagena, Espinal, Cali, Bogota, and other parts of the country. Philip Morris in San Gil, they closed down the lithography department, but what was left was Medellín and Barranquilla. Today, the treatment plant in Barranquilla no longer exists. There were over 150 employees who worked there who are not there anymore. The production plant in Medellín also closed, leaving over 400 workers pretty much out of work. This is a situation that keeps worsening more and more. That is why the Barranquilla plant, which had been working for a long time, does no longer exist today. That is why this kind of change brought upon by multinationals, when they tell us that they're coming to us to bring work to our countries, what they do is bring down our economy. As you can assess, this is not only about the issues that workers face, but it also worsens tobacco production, and this is a social issue. Our position is to invite all unions and all student organizations to come out on October 18th and to act in solidarity in front of the Philip Morris company, because we cannot continue with these terrible policies from multinationals towards workers. There is also press that said that the Medellín factory was going to close down. That came out on all media, social media, Facebook, Instagram. That happened first, and then the company also suggested the definite closure of both factories. They could not transfer the workers. All workers were affected by this situation. If you can If you can see in yellow, this is all that was left, all the all the union leadership that was left. As you can see in red, Andrés Urrea, who is present, Jorge Isaza, who is also present, our comrade Paola Vidal, Camilo Moreno, also from Barranquilla, and myself, talking to you, Vildamir Forero. We can look at how they reorganized Sintra and Tabaco. They reformed their bylaws, who can be affiliated to the current status limit. They extended it to include reduced risk products and marijuana cultivation. They searched for employees who may belong to the union and extended to tobacco growers. From a qualitative point of view, there is a political and trade union ideological education for the entire union leadership at all levels. We also need to carry out immediate collective bargaining courses, and at the end, and this is the most important, I would say, is international relations. Today, we urge you to come out on October 8th in front of the Philip Morris company. If you can come out with us, believe me, this will be a historical action here in New York City, because no one, absolutely no one, has said to their face what they are doing to Colombian workers. And today, if a family member were to work in this company, they would be affected by this crisis faced by this company. The most recent thing that they've done is the massive layoff, which this company has done, hiding from the unions and all the employees. Can you imagine this possible scenario? They tell the worker, you will lose your job, don't tell anyone, you keep working until the end of October, and we'll pay you the whole month. But we know that this is the kind of policy applied by the company to keep extracting from the workers in a systematic way. This is how multinationals work. And unfortunately, affecting Colombian families and the economy of the entire country that is bleeding from an endless violence.
Thank you so much, Vildamir.
Muchísimas gracias, Vildamir.
We'll hear from Paola Vidal, a member of the Bogota Sectional Board and a worker representative in the Claims Commission for COLTABACO SAS.
Is it on? Hello. Hello. I think you have to put it closer to you. Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. Like my comrade said, we thank you so much for coming out today, for those of you who are here in person, but also those of us who are joining us through YouTube and Facebook, because for us it's important to express to you, those of you who have a social conscience, let you know what is happening to us workers in Colombia and what is happening to the tobacco industry, which is something that is affecting us a whole deal and has made us come all the way here to ask you to act in solidarity. on something that will affect our country, not only what's happening in Colombia, but also in Latin America, which will have an effect in other countries around the world. As you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic where the economy has been on hold at a global scale, where we are trying to get ahead with our economy, but what the multinational has done is not allow us to keep our jobs. Quite the contrary, they have reduced the workforce and leave entire families without income. And they're not aware of the social impact and the economic impact even within families, how they can be they could be affecting an entire family unit. This is a social issue. This is not just an issue that happened inside a company. It's not just one person who lost their job. It is about who will provide for that whole family. What motivated the company to lay off the workers is to say that it's a mutual agreement between the company. They say that the company and the workers reached an agreement where the workers did not want to work anymore, and they just wanted to go home. No, they don't even say why. So they make the workers sign a document which later on you cannot sue them. You could not say, I did not agree, because they say that you signed and said that you were in agreement, and you were left without a job and without a way to support your family. So that is not a mutual agreement. That is not a mutual agreement. That is something that is imposed in a unilateral manner. What they're telling the worker, they call them in, suddenly come into the office, and they say, we don't really need you at our company. Can you leave? Do you want to leave and reach an agreement with us and we'll give you money? Or do you want to go home without any compensation? And that is not true, because when the company makes the decision to lay you off, they have to give you an amount of money. But as my comrade said, we ask you to come out, and we really appreciate that you are here at this event, but we'll also appreciate if you were to come out this Friday, October 8th, in front of the Philip Morris building to be listened to, so that they know that we're not, that we're taking action, that there is several of us representing all the families who are left in Colombia, who represent the tobacco industry. We want to work. We want to give our knowledge, our time. We're contributing our best efforts because we want to keep our jobs. We want to keep our jobs in human and dignified conditions. That's why we invite you. This is a social, economic, and political issue, which I think
and it would be very useful if all of you join us at our sit-in. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Paola.
Thank you, Paola.
Now we want to open up the floor to you. Please raise your hand to be called on. And out of respect for everyone who would like to comment, try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. If you have a question, please do your best to direct it to a particular speaker. For those watching on YouTube, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. All right, bueno, yo empiezo. Acaba de pasar pues el paro nacional en Colombia. Me gustaría saber un poco si los sindicalistas cómo fueron impactados con el paro y cómo ha cambiado la política o de pronto su experiencia, si tienen más apoyo ahora después del paro como trabajadores de tabaco. ¿Cómo los impactó el paro?
Farmers of tobacco, how did that impacted you?
No. The question?
Well, the stop continues obviously to impact one way or another the union movement, because before the pandemic it was very difficult, and we did see something happen very interesting within the organization, and as we became more visibilized in front of the facilities of Philip Morris in Bogota. In a symbolic way, we brought a drama. We caused drama here. Unfortunately, due to religious matters, we cannot do it here. But it created a huge visual impact. And it invited other organizations, other unions to come in a different way, to take different action. We were very strategic in the way we made this action happen. And we saw excellent results because this surprise factor was fundamental to develop our movement. A union director had been let go, and through this protest in front of the facilities, we were able to stop the firing of our colleague. Other unions joined us, and they used it as an example because many people didn't had many this drove other people to continue continuous protests. When seeing this, ¿alguien tiene otras preguntas para los panelistas?
Yes.
I'm gonna try to ask this in English just because it's too complicated for me in my Spanish. So, many families are being affected by the reduction in the amount of production in tobacco. We saw the chart with how many hectares of tobacco is being farmed, and so from the cultivators to the salespeople to the people that roll the cigarettes and all the different part of that industry. When an industry starts changing like that, how is it possible to pressure the company, a big corporation like Philip Morris, to say we need to be retrained or to be put in a new industry like cannabis or whatever? How is it possible to win that?
The amount of the people that were impacted was more than 20,000 families. That is the numbers statistically. But as an alternative, the multinational Philip Morris was able to enter in those cannabis plantations and commercializing the production, because they also just bought pharmaceuticals as well. So they have alternatives to not only own the cannabis but also expand into
you very
other
much.
Product. Well, complementing to your question, how can these corporations train and how they can react and they want to enter other alternatives of the tobacco with like cannabis and with these pharmaceuticals. The multinational has taken like a model. It's a structure that is different from how the company structure, and what they have done is remove the current employees and hire new people, but through other corporations where they pay less wage and as this not only impacts the worker and their family, but also the industry, because in these new workers don't have guaranteed rights because they're not protected from the union. So they are seeing how to reach that need and replacing the workers with new workers.
Would anybody
Thank you.
else like to ask a question?
¿Alguien más desea hacer una pregunta?
Yamir.
¿Aló? Ok, me escuchan. Sí, yo quería saber el papel de los
of the parliamentaries. Does this corporations use parliamentaries to threaten union members, as we've seen in the past with other multinationals like Coca-Cola, United Fruit, and the parliamentaries are also financed here in the United States, trained by the own U.S. government. Could you answer this question, please? Parliamentaries. It is an element. Of one way or another, it could happen, or it could interfere with an operation. But we, in a systematic way, as a union and from our positions, we really don't, unfortunately, have a pathway, or that has not been impacted, but other unions have been impacted. And you could also observe in the daily news, union leaders and leaders of movements are unfortunately have to leave the places where they take action to benefit the community. But fortunately, as a union organization, we have not been impacted. But the history tells us that we have had leaders that really have died as a cause of these actions.
Any other questions? And I just want to remind people that are watching us on YouTube that you can comment with your question, and I will read it out loud for our panelists. Bueno, para seguir la
to continue the question,
sabemos que en Colombia,
we know that in Colombia, well, para las personas que no conocen, Colombia es una de las naciones en Sudamérica con más altas presiones contra defensa.
Union workers, and a lot of this started with U.S. military intervention and Plan Colombia when it was instituted by the United States. Solamente estaba diciendo que Colombia es uno de los países donde tiene más represión de sindicalistas, de defensores de derechos humanos. Entonces, ¿ustedes cómo lidian con, digamos, el miedo que pronto tengan los trabajadores para organizarse y para demandar que defendan, que pues respeten los derechos de ellos como trabajadores?
Well, really, we do see the culture of fear when we go up to other colleagues So they are in that. So they're able to unionize and join our organization. Many of them are very scared. But also, I think they live with a double fear. One, because they know that their job is at a risk and they could end their employment. And people live with a lot of fear regarding that. But on another hand, we're telling them, this is what's happening. We can do something. We can solve our jobs. We can help others. But they feel fear. And I think, well, these type of interactions, these opportunities is gonna allow us to build trust, so that way they get closer to us and begin understanding what are the current situations and become aware, and then they themselves can select the best alternative, which is to be united so our benefits are extended and that there isn't any more of these violations. And I think it is important to build the trust that we can to give the trust we can build with them.
What are your hopes in terms of a Petro presidency, and what having, the first progressive, the possibility of the first progressive president in Colombia for decades, what that will mean for workers in your union and across the board?
Yeah, really, the alternative is well-known politics, very different from the current politics. Pedro would be one of those political figures that will bring about change. But it is not a surprise for anyone in the country that this kind of elections are being led by the ruling class. People are uncertain about the possibility of a true election. So we see the possibility that there will be a clearer policy that will allow us to see a better future for the country. But it is a very delicate issue, even when it comes to the media. They would favor in one way or another the election of this candidate. But our position within the union is to see the possibility that if there is a historical change, we will provide total support for this kind of alternative government that will give a solution to thousands of problems that have kept increasing in the country. But we should not put aside that that it is the government itself which has the mechanisms to bring down this kind of elections which are rigged in our country.
Question. How does that work?
Mi pregunta.
Question is, let's say for Colombians who are outside of Colombia, like myself, like Fabian, like the comrade Kathy, there's so many of us who live here abroad in the US. What would you like to see from us as a base that can support you in your struggle to have more protests in front of Philip Morris? Well, I kind of answered my question, but that was what I wanted to pose to you. For us, this is a first step. It is the first time that we're here, and I think that it's been daring for us to come out and face Philip Morris and hold this kind of event. We're also working in solidarity with our comrades in Mexico who are at the Guadalajara plant, the tobacco plant. And our idea today is to touch base and let you know and learn about the social movement here, and also let you know about the importance of the support internationally, for you to know what's happening in our country, for you to feel and know that something is happening there, and know that you can show your solidarity. I think that this is a first step, and we will leave the door open to other opportunities where we can work together and collaborate on different issues. But we know that there's a strength in unity, so that it's not just a few people in Colombia who are knocking at the door, but that there is more of us who are united under a same goal. So we would love for you or hear if you have any ideas, any suggestions that you could give us in this struggle. We'd like to hear it.
I would just like to add, it's really important for them to have their struggle visualized, like for people to learn more about their struggle. So if any of you have even contact with media or have, want to interview them, have podcasts, have other organizations, speak to them after, it's important that they tell their stories to as many people as possible, and that they learn, that other people in this country learn about what corporations are doing abroad to keep people in poverty and impoverished and keep our countries without power. So with that, does anybody have any other questions? Did we get anything from YouTube? Not yet.
In the wake of El Paro Nacional, it's inevitable that there will be another huge national strike. So I'm curious what y'all's hopes are for the role that the labor and union movement can play in the next uprising. That's just like, it's just like inevitable.
Right now, what we're working on and focusing on is our struggle, but we're not putting aside the possibility of participating in one way or another in a national strike. Ourselves as a union, mainly in the main cities where we have our headquarters, we're planning in a very strategic way what our participation will be, not only on May 1st, International Workers' Day, but we also belong to an organization like NACU, which is a national workers' organization, which organizes in a very systematic way as well, nationally, any kind of event that will affect and will impact our social and political protest, which also has an influence in the decisions that happen in Congress, which in turn also impact the development of unions. So we also participate in this, and we will not stop being part of this campaign to work in favor of the unions, and our union will always be present, present, present.
Any other questions? Vaya quieren.
Opening the door, to this a global situation. We have the global corporations, and we fight them here. But I think that we're sometimes unaware of what's going on and how our struggles are united. We have the same struggle against the same companies, but our Congress and our foreign policy of our State Department allows these corporations to run wild in countries all over the world and to do things that they're not allowed to do here, although they're trying to get away with the same things that they're doing in Colombia, they're trying to get away with here. And our situation here is getting more and more a crisis, for working people. So we need to meet them globally. We need to meet them in everywhere that they are. An injury to one is an injury to all of us. And so I'm really glad that you guys had the courage to come up here and to really open that door. And I want to see more of that global, us North Americans to become much more globally conscious like we were a few decades back.
There's a question on YouTube. What do you hope to accomplish during your time in the U.S.?
From October 3rd to October 10th, we had previously planned a timeline, a work timeline that would allow us to see in a very transparent way the possibility of taking action here in New York City. Obviously, with all the opportunities from the local unions, which we thank in the city of Bogota, we were in direct contact with Mrs. Yasmin Sara, who allowed us through the union, and with those of you who are present, like Mr. Urrea, who in one way or another were always supporting us 100%, in touch with us through Facebook, through all social media, especially through WhatsApp, and also going past the language barriers, which at times could be an impediment. We have been able to surpass all those barriers and challenges, and we have found in the local unions a support, at 100% support. But this is work that will continue to prevail, and will continue to work in solidarity, as we have said in this forum. We want you to be part of this and not to leave us alone in this interaction, in protesting the terrible policy of a multinational company that bleeds out each and every single worker in Colombia. I think that's something that we're looking for is for Philip Morris to realize that we will not keep silent. Their fear tactics will not make us stop. Quite the contrary, it will push us to move forward. This is an opportunity to be heard, to sit down. If we have to sit down and negotiate, we will do that. And truly, so that they know that they're not just dealing with numbers, because we're not numbers, we are human beings, we're families, and we're an entire society. For us to be heard, because maybe they look at us as being small and quiet, but we know that that's not the case. We can join other organizations and other people so that they can understand the magnitude of the impact of this terrible treatment of workers.
Are there any other questions? So just really quickly before we end, I do want to very much motivate for all of you to attend on Friday. You know, I'm a high school teacher, and I'm a teacher to 100% immigrant students, many who come from Colombia, who come from the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and they all come with this notion that this is the country that will save them, because our countries in Latin America are so underdeveloped because of the fact that they aren't led by, many times even, you know, it has to do with race, with racial politics. Like, oh, well, you know, we're like more indigenous countries, or, you know, it's always our fault. The reason they always teach us internationally, the media always teaches us that it is the fault of Latin American countries that we're poor. And I think that their experience really challenges that notion, right? We see how they have, you know, it's U.S. corporations basically taking away our national resources, or Colombia's national resources. In this case, it's tobacco, for very, very low cost. Then it robs people of their labor, continuously repressing people in order to ensure that they get paid less and less and less so that they make more and more profit. We see a global pandemic where people are dying, where they made multi-millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off the resources of Colombian people, off the resources, off the labor of Colombian people. And once they take those resources away, they refuse to pay them anything, right? And on top of that, now they're leaving because why? Because they refuse to pay taxes that would go to the social services that these people need, because of the fact that they don't pay them a livable wage, right? And then on top of that, it's not the case for them, but for a lot of union workers in Colombia, it is the case that they then fund the military and the paramilitary in Colombia to repress them, and many times kill union leaders. As I said before, Colombia has the highest amount of union leaders and human rights defenders that are disappeared, right? And then they use our tax dollars, right? They use millions of our tax dollars to fund wars abroad, to basically kill working class people for their profit. And then when I ask for books in our school, we don't have money. When we ask for after school programs, we don't have money. When I go to college to become a public sector worker, I have to get in debt because we don't have money to pay for public education. So this is really an issue about all of us. This isn't just about them. This is about corporations that are literally taking from us, from our people, and that are killing people abroad in order to continue to ensure their millions and millions of dollars of profit. And us dismantling and standing against these corporations is going to not only help the Colombian working class, but the working class of the United States as well. So I please, if you are able to, go out on Friday. It's going to be a rally, and it'll be in front of 120 Park Avenue, in between East 41st Street and East 42nd Street. And then I'll give the floor if you guys have any last comments or to close.
I personally want to thank each one of you that have joined us tonight, because I am thankful that you have taken your time to come here and be able to receive the information firsthand of the reason of our visit here. And once again, we invite you to come. October 8th, we will be in front of the facilities of Philip Morris. You cannot imagine the magnitude of this protest. This is going to be global. This is not only going to be in New York, it's going to reach many people, and we hope for it to be so. And we ask you not to stand still, but to join us and participate in this protest, October 8th. Thank you, all of you. And the applause actually goes to you.